지금부터 청년 세션 시작하도록
We'll
하겠습니다.
now start the youth session. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank all the participants for being here. I'm going to be moderating today. My name is Hyun Kim, SDSN Youth Korea. So despite the difficulties due to the pandemic, I'd like to thank everyone for participating on this online seminar. So we have simultaneous interpretation between Korean and English. And so on the Facebook page, you can also listen to the English version. And in the Zoom session, we have simultaneous interpretation. If you want to listen to the interpretation, please press the globe interpretation tab and choose English if you want to listen to the English. During the 5 days in Mexico City, we've been having the 2021 Global Social Economy Forum under the title of Local Governments and Social Economy, Co-Creation of Path for a Green and Inclusive Economy. Today, day 5 is the last day, and the theme is development of territorial and international alliances. And so the SDSN Youth Korea and Life In is co-hosting today's session, and we're going to be talking about the voice of the youth in establishing a sustainable impact ecosystem. So Life In has been hosting a variety of different seminars and has been doing a series of reports, and it has also hosted a reading concert and also a talk concert. And so the GSEF youth session will bring the two groups together, Life In and SCS and Youth Korea, and we'll be talking about ways to cooperate. So let me now, first of all, give you a brief introduction of the SN Youth Korea and Life In. First of all, Life In is a social economy media. It was established in 2017 to deal with a variety of different social issues and to develop effective solutions and to spread those solutions. Life In has been looking at a variety of different issues in our society and is trying its best to provide in-depth contents. In particular, it focuses on 4 different areas: social innovation, climate change, local issues, and youth-related issues. It seeks to spread the ecosystem of social economy and also to realize social values.
Next, Sustainable Development Solution Network, or the SDSN, was launched by the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and his special advisor, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, back in 2012. And in 2015, the SDSN launched the Youth Initiative to engage the future generation who will be the protagonist of sustainable development. The SDSN Youth aims to achieve the new climate regime and sustainable development goals in connecting and supporting the young people around the world. And the subtitle of today's event is SDG Dialogue. In the SDSN Youth Network will organize SDG Dialogues in the Asia Pacific on the second week of every month. I'd like to ask for your continued interest and participation. Today, we have 2 parts in the session. In part 1, we invite 3 speakers to learn about what the young people are doing for sustainability and what they're doing to partner with various stakeholders in Korea, Kenya, and Indonesia. Each speaker will make a presentation for 15 minutes. After listening to the presentations, we'll take a 10-minute break. And then we'll move on to part 2 with 3 young social innovators in Mr. Dong-ryul Kang of the SDSN Korea for a panel discussion for 45 minutes on the social innovation ecosystem. We'll now start the session in earnest. The first speaker is Yoon Seo-jeon, who's a journalist at LifeIn. Yoon Seo-jeon is working hard to solve the issues of the young generation with interest in an innovator who resolve issues themselves. Please welcome John with a big round of applause.
안녕하세요.
Good afternoon, everyone. Do you all hear me well? So let me start my presentation. So I'm going to be today talking about ways to resolve issues faced by youth innovators. My name is Yoon So Chan. I'm a reporter of Life In. So I'm very happy that I have this opportunity, and it's a big honor for me to be able to talk about social innovation and social economy in front of many different youth, and I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest. And so I hope that today's occasion will become a network where we can cooperate and also act and also galvanize the voices of youth around the world. Thank you to SDS and Youth Korea for co-hosting. So I'm going to be introducing some of the series of reports that we have been posting and also some of the webinars. So Life In is a social economy media outlet, and we were established in 2017, and we are based on subscription only. So this is our identity. Basically, we're a social co-op, we're a startup, and we have a variety of different journalists from various backgrounds, and we seek to become a social solution media. So Life In is a social economy media, but whilst we are doing our journalism, we feel that we are being confined to a narrow definition of the social economy, like co-ops and social enterprises and village enterprises. So if we are seeking for a better world, then is social economy the only solution? So this is a kind of fundamental question I am facing nowadays. Sometimes perhaps we are becoming too immersed in wording. So, for example, there might be an organization that seeks to change the world, but just because it's not a part of the so-called social economy, sometimes it is not being covered properly by our media. And so Life In wants to focus on 4 different areas that require social solutions, which are social innovation, climate crisis, community issues, and also youth. So we want to go beyond the social economy, and we want to expand the social economy ecosystem and also realize the importance of social values. So in the beginning of 2021, as a social solution media, Life In was reorganizing itself. And we thought that we needed some time to talk about what we want to do and what direction we want to head towards. And so we decided that we will talk about 3 different issues, social innovation and climate crisis and local issues. So we decided we're going to have a talk show. We invited Patagonia, Living Lab, Lush, Green Asia, and Nature Dream Park. And so we talked about some of the issues in our society and what the solutions could be and what kind of approach are necessary in the talk concert. But then, how about the youth? Youth was not present at the talk show. There we realized that in order to solve issues faced by youth, we have to ask the questions, who are the actors? In one forum, there was one youth activist who said that, do you really want to hear to the voices of youth? Didn't you just invite me just to show diversity for the sake of superficial diversity? In fact, looking back, rather than really listening to the voice of youth, perhaps we had been using the youth as a form of showing off diversity. And so we needed to look at real issues that face youth and also to consider them as actors. And so that's why we started in our media a series of reports titled, what are you doing? What are you up to? So we wanted to focus on the youth who are living the present society, not the future youth, but the present youth. And so we invited Yong Hae-in from the Basic Income Party. We invited Kang Han-sol from the Social Welfare Creation Center. We also invited Ivy and Maya Land. And so we invited many different people. And so we wanted to do a series of interviews with these youth to look into what the youth really want, what the youth really need. And so let me talk a little bit about what we had dealt with. So first of all, when it comes to Yong Hae-in of the Basic Income Party, well, do you know what percentage of the parliamentarians are below the age of 40? It's only about 4.3%. And so Ms. Yong said that the previous generation of parliamentarians had fought against the dictatorship, but nowadays the youth generation is fighting against a variety of different discriminations that exist in everyday life. They are invisible structures that are like cobwebs, and they are spread around society, and so they seem invisible, but they are there. There is discrimination in our everyday life, she said. And now let me share with you what Kang Han-sol from the Social Welfare Creation Center had said. Well, she had said when she was growing up, she eventually has to move to Seoul. And when she failed to pass a university entrance exam, she felt that her life had come to an end. But she didn't move to Seoul, but nothing really happened. There were no problems. But why are people leaving the local areas and trying to move to the metropolitan city? So she focused and emphasized the fact that people, young people especially, didn't always have to move to the Seoul metropolitan area to make something of themselves. We also heard from Cho Keum-duk and Kim Dong-han, who are the co-chairpersons of the Youth Credit Union Promotion Committee. So they are focusing on the difficulties that youth face in living their lives and economic or financial issues that they face. So they said that they had imagined a rather idealistic university life, but in fact, university students are faced with very high college tuition and debt. And so they said that the people who are actually creating solutions to issues are the youth innovators. So anyway, we were in the midst of gathering all these different opinions, and GSEF actually proposed a session. So on the occasion of 12th of August, which is International Youth Day, GSEF proposed that we have a youth talk show. And because of the pandemic, many youth are facing severe difficulties. For example, many youth are unemployed, the real estate market is skyrocketing, and social inequality is becoming a lot worse. And so they are becoming very high barriers for the youth. And so GSEF and Life In co-hosted a webinar, The Social Economy and Social Innovation XX for Youth, on the occasion of the International Youth Day. And so we wanted to look at some of the issues that were faced by the youth. And so many topics came up, like the lack of opportunity to build their careers, the lack of housing, and the fact that there are no entry-level jobs. And so then I started to ask a fundamental question. Is it just this youth generation? But I believe that today's youth generation is facing the worst case in history because there are no guarantees about the future. And I felt that the inequality and divisions were just going to become aggravated. And so as a way of solving these issues, we wanted to pinpoint what the youth were feeling, what they wanted to do, and what kind of solutions they could come up with. And we wanted to share some solutions on our dilemmas and way for practice and cooperation. So before the webinar, we did a survey and we asked the question, what do you think is the biggest problem faced by the youth? And economic inequality and polarization recorded the top, and climate crisis and also unemployment also followed. And we also asked the question, what do you want to leave for the next generation as youth? And majority replied, a livable social structure. So anyway, we had this talk show titled Social Economy and Social Innovation, XX for Youth. And so we invited various speakers who's going to be talking about the climate change and citizens' wealth building. And Lee Seung-bin, who is going to be speaking today from Fun Company, was also participating at that panel. And so we talked about what youth need these days, what kind of effort the youth are making for what. And so everyone was asked, what do youth need? What youth are doing right now? And so many people said that the youth are just holding onto thin thread. Youth are becoming crazy, the youth are listening, the youth are studying, the youth are collaborating, etc. Anyway, I feel that we are living a difficult period. It's really difficult to get a job, and it's really to get proper housing, and there's a severe inequality. So there's a huge wave coming towards us. So the conventional or the existing generation may feel that we are vulnerable, but the youth were surfing and riding the wave at their own rhythm. When you surf, people say that the same wave doesn't come twice, and so you have to make the best of the given wave. And so there are many people talking about the problem, but there are not that many people talking about solutions. And so within Life In, we usually say to ourselves, innovation starts from deep anger and it's done DIY. And so anyway, on a smaller level, we just want to continue with what we want to do, but we also want the planet to be like a planet and humans like humans. So on August 12th, it was International Youth Day. So the SDSN Youth Korea also had an event to celebrate the day. And so Life In and SDSN Youth Korea met on that day. And I just want to say that on the 20th of September, during the UN General Assembly, the BTS talked about SDG, and they said that we are not the lost generation, but a welcome generation. And so they gave us a message of hope that we are moving towards a better future. And so as peers, the generation of youth actually resonate with each other regarding a sustainable life. And I think that's why we are having this session today. So anyway, through today's discussion, I hope that we'll be able to find a good wave and enjoy some excellent surfing. And last but not least, I would just like to mention that Life In is going to continue to play its role of listening, looking, and looking and listening properly, and listening to the voices of youth. Life In is going to be attentive to the youth, and we're going to always focus on the social innovators, youth innovators. And so hopefully we'll be able to continue with the youth innovators, and we want to become a platform for different youth innovators to connect together and network together. Thank you very much. So how many minutes do I have left? You have about 2 minutes. So for just about 2 minutes, actually, I got a question about our organizations. The question is this: what's the community that is contributing to social issues? And if youth issues are considered as social issues, what do you think some of the solutions may be? So I want to say these days, collective impact is spreading. And what that means is that there are many issues that cannot be solved by one person alone, and it can only be solved collectively. And so Life In wants to introduce that kind of campaigns, and youth issue is always a social issue. And so we don't want to stop at just pointing out the problem. We just want to start finding the solution, however small they may be. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Yun-sa. So she has been talking about how youth as part of society should be strengthening their voice and how their voice can be listened to and communicated. And so hopefully we'll also be able to come up with different insight and idea from her presentation about the youth can do. So let's now give another big round of applause to Yoon So. Now we go on to the second presenter. So the second presenter
is Margaret Kamau, the regional coordinator of the SDSN Youth Kenya. The speaker has interest in mobilizing the power of youth for sustainable development, peace, security, leadership, and governance and policy. That's why the speaker is working hard to educating in developing the capabilities of the young people so that they can take part in decision-making process. The presentation's title is Youth Involvement in Public Policy and Social Economy for Sustainable Development. Please welcome the speaker with a big round of applause.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Okay, so
yes.
Thank you so much. So as you've introduced me, I'm Margaret. It's actually morning here in Kenya. So I understand it's evening, afternoon. So, and also good morning to everyone. And thank you for joining us in this very important conversation. I want to start, for the interest of time, I want to start sharing my screen on my presentation. And yeah, so that's it. Our topic today, I'll be talking about youth involvement in public policy and the social economy for sustainable development. I think that this is the most interesting issue that we're having in this generation. We're having issues of young people feeling that they are not effectively or even meaningfully involved in important policy making. And so I just want to... So this is the question that we will be answering in this presentation. Who are the youth? What is social economy? I think actually that has been touched on. We are both involved. We are all involved in social economy in one way or the other, either as social innovators or as consumers. So that question will be, why should youth be involved in public policy making, and how do they affect them? And also, what's the link between social economy, public policy, and sustainable development? We are also going to look at how can youth drive sustainable development through social economy. So let's define the term youth. I think that this is an issue of contention. Most countries have different definition of what a youth is. It depends with age. For instance, here in Kenya, you may find that youth are considered to be the age group of 15 to 35, whereas at the UN it's I think 15 to 24, whereas in other countries it's 18 to 30. So I'm not sure. We don't have a specific definition of the term youth in terms of age, but I think we can all agree that the issue of economic independence is key. And so young people between the age of 15 and 25 constitute the fifth of the world population. Youth are a societal resource. We all know that they are full of energy, they are creative, and they should be tapped into in order to bring about economic, environmental, social, and political solutions that are facing their communities. Now, young people have a critical role in the implementation of sustainable development efforts, and far from being just mere beneficiaries of the Agenda 2030, young people have consistently shown active participation, and also they are architects in the development. They also continue to be engaged in the frameworks and also in the processes that support the implementation of sustainable development goals, and also they participate in the reviews. So young people are globally, this is true. They are a creative force and a dynamic source of innovation. They have unrootedly and throughout history, they have participated, they have contributed, and also catalyze the solutions and important changes in the political system, power sharing dynamics, and also economic opportunities. However, young people face so many challenges that, for instance, I think that has been outlined by the speaker who has just spoken from Leifen. And we see the issue of poverty, barrier to education, discrimination, and also we have limited employment opportunities. This is a global concern, so I wouldn't specify that it happens in this country, but it's something that is happening all over the globe. Now, public policy, what do you understand by public policy? I think that most young people know what public policy is, because these are decisions that are taken on our behalf. They affect us. For example, you can find that the issue of taxes, that is something that will affect you as a consumer and also as a citizen. So I think that it's really important that we understand the public policy and how we can participate in the public policy making, and also how they affect us, and we can be able to educate our fellow young people. So public policy is a system of laws, regulatory measures, courses of action, and priorities that are concerning a given topic that is promulgated by the government entity or its representative. So I think I'll just summarize this. You can find the presentation from the link that was shared for the interest of time. So I think that also public policy comes in terms of judicial interpretation and also regulations. However, a public policy that is strong enough must be able to solve efficiently and effectively the citizen of that country. It must support or serve justice, and also support governmental institutions and policies, and also must encourage citizenship that is active. Now, when we come to policy making, it is characterized by it's a bit dynamic and complex and interactive system, which public problems are identified and countered by. This can be countered by creating a new policy or reforming an already existing policy. And now, what are the? I think that we all know this. Some of the public problems you can all relate with the issue of environmental or even economic that we're all feeling right now, because we are in recession period due to COVID-19. So the public problems originate in very different ways, and so the government tries to implement these public policies either at the local, international, or even national level, in order to bring about the change that is needed for a country to survive. Now, the policy making as a continuous process has many feedback poles, and therefore verification and also evaluation is really important for such kind of public policy to be implemented. Now, the public problems influence public policy making. So like I mentioned, economic, social, and also environmental nature. So each system is influenced by different public problems and issues, and therefore it has different stakeholders. You may find that individuals like young people, corporation, if you have a non-government organization, or even interest group, they collaborate or even compete in order to influence a certain policy or influence the policymakers in order to act in a certain way. So we also have politicians, civil servant, lobbyists, domain experts, and those from the industry. They use a variety of tactics and tools to advance their agenda, which include advocating their positions publicly, attempting to educate supporters, and also mobilize allies on a particular issue. Now, it's important to have many actors in the public policy processes, but ultimately the government officials choose the public policy in response to the public issue or the problem at hand. In doing so, the government officials are expected to lead public center ethics and take the needs of all stakeholders into account. Let's come to social economy. So I think this was also mentioned by my colleague who just spoke. And social economy actually focuses on answering the people's need. It's like access to food at an affordable price, qualitative healthcare for the whole community, and high quality standard of healthcare for all. Social economy focuses on collective identity and is created by people with common values to find common solutions. Like right now, we are headed to the COP26, and young people are speaking globally. If whether it's Kenya, Uganda, whether it's USA, Australia, I think young people have really come together to advocate for climate change in order for the policymakers to take actions, because this is about the future of young people, and that's why this is so important. So a social economy is usually people-centered. It has social aims above profit. So it's not, when it comes to social economy enterprises, they put people and planet above the profits. Now, this may include foundations, cooperatives, social enterprises, and also associations such as student association. Now, this was an important question that I had highlighted. What comes to your mind when you hear the word social economy, and how can this help achieve sustainable development? So, like I said, we are all participants of social economy, whether it's because we have the expertise, our skills, or even as innovators and also as consumers. Now, what are the hindrances to active youth involvement in public policy and social economy? These are challenges which are universal. They are not only happening here in Kenya, but also they are global concerns. So some were highlighted, such as unemployment, which is so evident everywhere. But I just want to briefly go through all this. One is access to information. So information is a critical. Actually, you can't act effectively if you don't have information, if you are not aware of what is happening, be it in your municipality, or here we call them county, or even national level. So you have to have access to information. But mostly young people are, I don't know, they don't want to maybe to get the information, but it's always there available on the public domain, or maybe in some sites such as government sites, or maybe it's not there at all. So access to information is very critical to enable young people to take part in the policy decision making that directly affects their lives. Now, the issue of employment, which is right now with economic recession, we have seen that a lot of young people have lost their jobs. They have lost their jobs. They are graduates. They are not in any type of employment. They don't have an income. So the future of every society positioning in the labor market and resolving youth unemployment are critical and very important, especially during the economic crisis. Like right now, youth have been disproportionately affected by high levels of unemployment. Now, the other issue is about education. Most education systems are archaic. You find that they don't serve the 21st century problems. So as young people, we must demand for an education system that meets the needs of the 21st century. The education system must focus on critical thinking, problem solving, and also teamwork. So all young people must have access to quality education in order for us to actively participate in policy making and also attain sustainable development. The other issue is about health. I think that young people face numerous physical and mental concerns. Actually, in some communities, they think that the issues of mental health are a taboo because it's not addressed most of the time. And also young people have no access to, you don't know who to go to talk to when you are mentally disturbed, when you are depressed, when actually you are having suicidal thought. There is not that access to quality health care in terms of whether it's physical or even mental issues. So psychological issues happen to most of young people because most are economically unstable, most are undergoing so many things, changes in their body. So you also find that there is no access to here we can say that young females are unable to access contraceptives or the sexual education or anything. So that is a challenge to all of us. So government should enable you to successfully confront these risks by providing access to universal health care that is very fundamental. Now, the other issue is about participation. Youth participation in political, cultural, and economic dynamics is crucial in every society. You see, we are the largest in our population everywhere. Young people are the largest, but mostly they are sidelined, are ignored during decision making. They're denied the stakes even when it comes to decision making process. However, especially during political transition, that is when they are mostly invited maybe to even vote or do anything. However, when it comes to employment, when it comes to being appointed in these public officials, they are mostly sidelined. The issue of crime and violence, I think that this is also common mostly almost everywhere. Young people can either be victims or perpetrators of crime and violence. Now, during the change of regime, you find that most young people are used and in hope. Okay, yeah, my time is getting up. I'm about to conclude. So hate crimes and hooliganism is so rampant, and also the issue of financing. I think that this is common to all of us. We're facing issue of financing for organization or even for enterprises. Now, what's the way forward? I'll be very brief. So for the policymakers, this is something that you can demand from your parliamentarians and people who make this decision. Young people are recognized as vulnerable group. That is the first step, which is important in bringing you at the forefront of policy making agenda. And but what's more important is that they should be included beyond poverty. Now, it's important to also insensitize youth enterprises by giving them access to good education, entrepreneurship through favorable tax policies, youth enterprises, mentoring programs, and also business clubs. It's also important to develop an education strategy that ensures an inclusive, comprehensive, and contemporary national education strategy. And lastly, public policies must empower young people in their initiatives and activities in line with basic goals of sustainable development and the environment. Now, what's there is this recommending, this is what this convention recommends, that the formation and also revamping of existing national and local youth councils that empower youth and support youth organization in the activities, as well as expressing the creativity of young people, improving youth participation in public policy making by training young people. And lastly, now this is for the youth, what can you do as an individual? So one is that youth must continue to seek for active involvement and participation in the decision-making for creators. Young people must stay focused and united, and young people must be involved in youth political activism. Like, you can join a student organization, and youth visibility is important. How you are portrayed by the media is really so important, and you must take action and inspire those around you. So I know that I think I've taken, my time is up. That's why someone is raising their hand. So yeah, that's it. That's it. I think, yeah.
네, 감사합니다. 마가렛
Thank you very much. So the Margaret Kamel, the original coordinator of the STSN Youth Kenya, talked about the critical role of the youth in achieving the goals of sustainable development through social economy and public policy making. And she also emphasized the roles of the youth that should be played for the future of the society. Let me move on to the next speaker.
So the next speaker is from GIDKP, Rahyang Nusantara coordinator. And so he's going to be talking about his involvement in the Indonesia plastic bag diet movement, which seeks to decrease the use of single-use plastic. And in order to avoid using plastic, there is a global alliance that has been formed, the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives. So he is also participating in Gaia as well. So Lahyang is going to make a presentation regarding the strategy to eliminate single-use plastic as efforts to Indonesian youth for carbon neutrality. Let's welcome him with a big round of applause.
Thank you so much, everyone. Hello, my name is Rahyang Nusantara. Thank you for having me. It's afternoon in Indonesia. Yes, as the MC said before, I will share my stories in Indonesia to how to create a strategy to eliminate the single-use plastics as an effort of the Indonesian youth for the carbon neutrality, as the TOR said that. So this is my talking points today. I will talk about the policy directions and problems in Indonesia and the current situation of waste management, especially reductions in Indonesia, and our strategy on how to enable the supporting ecosystem. So first, I will introduce you my organization. So I'm part of the organizations called the Indonesia Plastic Bag Diet Movement. We started in 2010 by young people. I was still young by then. That has a vision to make Indonesia free from plastics pollutions, free from single-use plastics consumptions, by inviting the public to be wiser in using the single-use plastics and switch to a reusable product and packagings to simply save the environment from the plastic pollutions. We also the organizations that encourage the Minister of Environment and Forestry of Indonesia to organize a trial of reductions systems called paid plastic bags back in 2016 in 23 regions, and succeeded to reduce the consumption of plastic bags by 55%. The trial became a snowball effect in Indonesia that I will tell you later in my slides. So we have three approaches to make Indonesia free from single-use plastics pollutions. The main approach is advocacy. So this is the approach that we designed to encourage the local governments and the national government to have regulatory transformations, especially to reduce the use of single-use plastics. To make the advocacy works, we have to also work together with the corporates, especially businesses in food and beverage services, and also retailers, on how they also can involve in the discussions, in the planning, that the operational standard in retailer and also in food and beverage services can also adopt the plastics reductions. Education is also important. We have specific educational programs that focus on Z generations or the alpha generations, especially in high schools. We have programs to assist them, to facilitate them on how to create a plastic-free schools. We facilitate that the students will be the main actors. The students will be the leader of the schools. We help them behind the scenes to facilitate the discussions, to facilitate the problem-solving process, and until now, we have more than 50 schools participated in the programs. The programs, it's called Enviro Challenge. Enviro Challenge is also featured in the SDSN report, about youth initiatives report back in 2018. So for the advocacy role, we have assisted 7 cities, districts, and provinces in Indonesia to conduct the academic studies, to facilitate the cross-stakeholders discussions, to create a regulation draft, to provide the technical inputs on the draft regulations, and also we involved in the monitoring of the regulations implementations. Next part, I will talk about the policy directions that happen in Indonesia. So in Indonesia, we have regulations that stated when you talk about the waste management, we talk two things. The first one is waste reductions. The second one is waste treatment or waste handling. My organizations focus in the reduction part, especially the preventions and the reuse mechanisms. So in Indonesia, by 1 January 2030, this type of single-use plastics, both products and packaging, will be banned by the governments of Indonesia. So, until then, the business sectors from the manufacturer, F&B services, and the retailer have to prepare on how to eliminate this type of single-use plastics by January 1, 2030. This is also the reasons why we focus on the single-use plastics. So the recent issues and news and also research say that microplastic is one of our issues that we have to face, and we have to solve it because microplastics are everywhere. There's a research said that microplastics are found in almost all drinking water sources. In Indonesia, 1/3 of fish caught in eastern Indonesia contains microplastic. Salt in Indonesia also contains microplastics. Even stool samples from some peoples in Indonesia positive contains microplastics. In Italy, microplastics were also found in the placenta. In the pictures here, there's also showed you that microplastic also presents in our air. So we breathe not only oxygen, but also the microplastics. That's why there's a research showed that there are microplastics in our lung tissues. So this kind of things, this kind of problems can also makes us extinct maybe in the near future. So that's why we focus to campaign from single-use plastics, because microplastics is very easily appear from the single-use plastics. And this is also why we focus to fight to a plastic-free world or plastic-free Indonesia, because the whole linear economy, the whole life cycle of plastics from the extractions until the disposal has a problems. Not only in the oceans, not only in our oceans, our river, our environment, but also the whole life cycle, since they extracted from the fossil fuel. It contributes to the climate change. The whole cycle contributes to climate change. Our colleagues in CL also have a research that stated the emissions from the plastic productions. The research showed that the extraction transformations will leak methane, and the refining and manufacturing process also will emit the greenhouse gases. The waste handling, like incinerations, also will produce the emissions, and plastic in the environment, plastic that floated in the oceans will also emit the greenhouse gases. So the whole cycle, the whole process is very harmful for us, not only for the human, but also the entire environments. The recent research also shows the evident the links between the climate change and the marine plastic pollutions from the life cycle to the product itself, and everything's in the process contributes to the climate change. But besides the problems we face, we have to also acknowledge that we do something, not only Indonesia, but also around the world, do something to reduce the pollutions. This is what we do in Indonesia. So after the trial, like I said before, early in my presentations, there's been a snowball effect happening in Indonesia. We have now have more than 50 cities have regulations on single-use plastics restrictions. And I think this is a good news to start eliminating the plastic pollutions, although the implementation is not really perfect, 100% perfect, but we will go there. We will going to the right directions to reduce the impact to our environments. And we still have more than 400 cities to follow these steps. And I hope that before 2030, all of the cities in Indonesia will follow the first 50 cities that already eliminate single-use plastics. And this is some stories that I showed you from our collaborations with the local governments and also the business sectors, that in Jakarta, we started to ban single-use plastic bags since last year, July 1st, during the pandemic. The governor is very strong to keep enforce the law. So after the 6-month implementation, we successfully decreased 42% of single-use plastic bags. Still far to 100% because Jakarta intended to total ban the single-use plastic, but we will go there, and this is I think this is the great number that we can decrease almost half of the consumptions before the regulations enacted. And in Bali, we also have an exciting news about the reduction of the single-use plastics. Not only plastic bags, but Bali also restricts the use of straws and styrofoams. In my presentations, and it shows that Bali can also decrease the number of plastic bags up to 57%, straws up to 80%, and styrofoam up to 70%. And similar to Jakarta, Bali also intended to have a total ban on these 3 types of plastics. But we're going there too, to make a 100% of eliminations. So my last part of the presentation is how we can create this ecosystem to support the single-use plastics reductions. So we first have a public campaign back in our 2013 public campaign to support to collect the support from the public to push to encourage the government to have a strong enforcement to the plastic reductions. And then we have a workshop with the local governments to discuss about how they can enable to start drafting the regulations and enforce the regulations. And then from that, some of the local governments, we have assistance programs that I said before, from the academic study to the monitor of the implementations. And then we also promote the plastic-free programs in retailers, in F&B services, in traditional markets, in inviting the business management to be part of the solutions. And then we also promote the Indonesian local reusable packaging. We have a lot of types of craft that came from the local plans, came from the local social enterprises to support the reductions part. And last but not least, we also build the community movement to make a bigger impact, to make a bigger noise of the issues by, of course, by the young people. So 3 conclusions before I stop my presentations. To save our climate, use what you already have. Reusable is possible. Don't buy anything that you don't need. And if you want to create a bigger impact, if you want to create a systemic change, advocate to your local governments to create the regulations and also to enforce the the regulations, not only to create the regulations, but the enforcement is also important. And start your own initiatives. Every single thing is precious. Every single actions is counted, and we have to do it now. So thank you for your attentions. If you want to know more about our initiatives, you can go to our website. It's also available in English. Thank you so much. Back to the MC.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. So Raihan Nusantara has been talking about the efforts and movements to decrease the use of the single-use plastic and what kind of changes we're able to achieve through those efforts. And so he has also talked about the issue of the microplastic, and he also touched upon the economic structure that leads to the production of microplastic. Let's now give another big round of applause. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the 3 presentations. So thank you so much for sharing us with your excellent insight. Another big round of applause to the speakers, please. Thank you. Now we're going to go on to the panel discussion, but before we do so, we're going to have a group photo. So we're going to try to create a certain pose. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a SDG circle with one hand, and with the other hand is going to be an OK sign that we've heard from the youth. So we're going to do a screenshot. So please, yes, it might take a little while because there are lots of participants. So please go ahead with your circle and the OK sign. So, and of course, turn on your videos if you have not already done so.
네, 촬영이 완료되었습니다.
Thank you very much. We're done with the group photo. Thank you. So now we're going to have a 7-minute break, and then we're going to go on to the panel discussion. So during the panel discussion, we're going to have the 3 innovators, and we're going to be talking about youth ecosystem in a new normal era. So there is a Padlet link on the chat room. And so if you have any questions to the panelists, you can upload it here. So during the break, you can use the Padlet link and to leave questions or comments for the panelists. So don't leave Zoom, just turn off your microphone and video and enjoy your break, and we'll see you in a moment. Thank you.
Student hubs on universities around the world. Through the SDG Students Program, you will learn about the principles of promoting sustainability and of global citizenship, and have the opportunity to use this knowledge to address local challenges in your community. I encourage young people in universities all around the world to join the SDG Students Program and the SDG Student Hub on your campus and work with one another to improve your communities. I firmly believe in the important role you can play to help solve some of our world's biggest problems, and it all starts with this single step. Change the world starts on your campus with you, and I look forward to hearing about all the great work you will do through the SDG Students Program.
Hello, 안녕하세요, Korea. I'm very excited to understand and learn that all of you are meeting today to share ideas and brainstorm on a new pathway for building a more resilient, sustainable, peaceful, and just society. The step that you've all taken to be part of the SDSN community is extremely critical, especially in this decade of action. As SDSN, I wish to welcome you, I wish to congratulate you, and I wish to remind you of the critical step that you've taken to join a global community of like-minded, hard-working, determined, and passionate young people who are working towards the SDGs. I wish you all the very best, and I wish to remind you to continue working extremely hard, creating alliances, creating partnerships, because the only way that we can solve the world's greatest challenges, such as conflict, such as peace building, is through partnerships, collaboration, and working together. And as SDSN youth, count on our support. We shall always provide you with all the support that you need to make sure that we work collaboratively across the different countries, across the different universities, and across the different schools to address the world's greatest challenges. Thank you, and I wish you all the very best as you engage in dialogue and in different conversations. Enjoy.
지금부터 두 번째
We're
순서인
now
패널
going to start part 2, which is a panel discussion. So please come back to this session. Now we're going to start a panel discussion about the youth ecosystem in a new normal era, where to and how. So through the Padlet link in the chat room, you can share questions and comments with the panelists. So please use the Padlet link throughout the session. So let me now introduce the chair and the panelists. The chair is Dong-yeol Kang, the network manager of the SDSN Korea, which is the co-organizer of today's event. And so he has been working on education and sanitation improvement projects in Laos for 7 years, and is now currently teaching as an adjunct professor at Mongolian International University. Panelists are Ta In-won, who is the chair of Youth Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development Korea, YLPF Korea. And we also have Chan-ho Kim, who is a representative and chair of YSEA Korea. And we also have Eric Lee, who is a representative of Fun Company. So let's give them a big round of applause and reactions. And we can now get the panel discussion started.
안녕하세요.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Dong-yeol Kang, the network manager of the SDSN Korea. Nice to meet you all. So in this session, the SDSN Korea and LifeIn have worked together to organize, and that's why we were able to invite great young social innovators. Let me now introduce the panelists. We have Ta In-won, the chairperson of the YLPF Korea. She has taken interest in poverty and human rights. She's working hard to create sustainable Korea, the Korean Peninsula, and the world, with the focus on policy development. Please welcome her with a big round of applause. Next, we have another young social innovator, Mr. Chan-ho Kim, the chairperson of the YSTA Korea. Chairman Kim is making efforts on expanding diversity in the society with the focus on sustainable development, establishing sustainable development goals on the local levels for the youth, and is working also hard on narrowing the gap between Seoul and the other areas. So, big round of applause, please. And last but not least, we have another young social innovator, Mr. Seungbin Lee, the CEO of Fun Company. So Mr. Lee studied in the Lane course at the Mondragon Team Academy. And I think many of you have heard of Minerva University, and the Lane course is a kind of a more grassroots version that enables the students to create cooperatives. So Mr. Lee established a cooperative that actively communicates and works with organizations in 5 other countries on projects such as upcycling, youth education, and so on. Please welcome Mr. Lee with a big round of applause. Thank you. So thanks to Lifein and the SDSN, we have successfully organized this session. And although I made a brief introduction of the panelists, I'd like to ask the panelists to introduce themselves, including what their organizations do and their basic thoughts on the youth ecosystem in the new normal era. So I think you can talk about the current issues regarding the youth ecosystem, and particularly in regard with the COVID-19 pandemic. And there is another serious issue is the climate crisis. So we might have to cry out that stop this. If we keep walking on this path, we'll all die, as somebody cried out in Squid Game. So the climate crisis is a serious issue affecting the young people. So to summarize, I'd like to ask the panelists to introduce the organizations and talk about current issues in the youth ecosystem, and if possible, some solutions for the growth of the ecosystem. And we will go from Dine 1, the chairperson of the YLPF Korea.
그리고 친절한 소개 감사드립니다.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction and explanation. Nice to meet you all. I'm Dine Won, the chairperson of the Youth Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development Korea, or YLPF Korea. Now the YLPF is affiliated with the SDSN. I think that many of you would be unfamiliar with YLPF. It's an acronym for Youth Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. So this uses the same organizational structure as the high-level political forum of the UN. My organization first worked on the clarifying the definition of the youth. Now, in Korea, there are diverse definitions of youth. One law defines youth as those between 18 and 29, and the other law between 19 and 34. The definition also differs between regions. So I think this is problematic because the diverse definitions lead to confusions even in the youth employment policy. In many other policies, and this also hinder the youth to raise their voices in the policymaking process. Now, the youth is a huge category. It consists of undergraduate students, young adults who have just finished their university education. And because of this diversity in the makeup of the youth, it has been difficult for us to really create unity among the young people. That's why we are taking the young generation perspective on policy suggestion and research. We are utilizing the first Gwanghwamun, which is a policy suggestion platform of the central government, to make inputs of the youth. And we're preparing for the presidential election and the local elections next year, where we can raise the young people's voice. That's it. Thank you very much. So it's interesting that there are young people who are conducting various initiatives, and at the same time pressuring the policymakers and politicians to set up youth policy. Next, we'll move on to Chen-Ho Kim. Please introduce your organization and the issues of the youth ecosystem. Can you hear me? Yes. So I'm from YSDA, an acronym for Youth Sustainable Development Alliance, Korea. And I'm a chairperson of this organization. And this is a consultative body where the members pull the wisdom for sustainable development. So I think many of you have better understanding than me of sustainable development. And there will be some people who's just getting to understand this concept. So what's sustainable development? It's about enabling a sustained development. And we can talk about the history of the definition, like the word was first coined in the 1970s and so on. But let me skip that part and focus more on the youth perspective. As the previous panelist said, the young people have differing views, interests, and standpoint. So it's been challenging for these diverse young people to closely work together. And even even when they have an organization for cooperation, it's been difficult for them to decide on the issues they need to work on and for how long they want to cooperate. So there has been many such occasions in the last couple of decades. So I found this out from some research on the history of youth organizations.
And so we interviewed 120 youth leaders, and we realized that all groups and organizations and all individuals had a lot of things that were unsustainable between individuals and between the groups. And so when it comes to organizations and different groups, not just individuals, have to come up with a common agenda, which is why we came up with the idea of a youth sustainable development. And so I think the Youth Sustainable Development Goals is also being discussed globally. In 2015 in UN, the SDG was first adopted, and so all nations have different circumstances. And so you now have national SDGs, and you have lots of locals and regions within a country. So then that led people to come up with local and regional SDGs. And so, of course, when the United Nations was coming up with the SDG, the youth were not really able to intervene, but were able to engage on the more local and regional levels. But when it comes to Korea, when it comes to coming up with the national SDGs, Korean youth were not so engaged. But nonetheless, I believe that the youth do have to come up and do have to be able to voice out how they link with the SDGs and how the local SDGs link with the goals on the global level. And so there is a national or nationwide SDG network, and the network does seek to include the youth, but there are not that many youth. It's more of the previous generation who are active in the network. And so we decided that we would come up with a Korea Youth Sustainable Development Council that could work hand in hand with this previously existing network. So was that enough? Thank you. Yes. So actually, I was asking for a rather simple introduction, but it was a bit long, but nonetheless, I think it was a very necessary introduction. So we are at day 5 of GSEF, and this is all about territorial and international alliances. And so in the youth session, we're also talking about building an ecosystem for youth. So I think against that backdrop, I think your introduction was quite necessary. So I think the two groups have been talking a lot more about this sustainability. So GSEF is a co-sponsor, and also Life In is also a co-sponsor. And we've been talking a lot about social economy in the session. So in that regard, I'd like to now invite Mr. Eric Lee, who is a representative of fund company. So can you introduce to us a fund company? So hello, good to see you all. Can you all hear me well? So like you had introduced me before, I'm actually still undergoing a delayed degree in a Mondragon University. And so it's a 3-year degree, and you are able to set up a social enterprise. And 11 people who met during the degree across 5 different nationalities came up with this idea of establishing a fund company. So we are incorporated in Spain and in China, in Seattle, Korea. We also have incorporations in those areas. So in the case of fund company, well, we have a very clear vision about resolving issues faced by youth. So if you talk with youth from many different countries, we all get depressed. So the young generation is fighting against depression and the lack of hope. So then that led me to think about why we are so depressed all the time and why we are lacking hope. So then I thought maybe perhaps we could start a company and we can look for some solutions to the issues that we face. Anyway, this kind of lack of hope and this kind of lack of encouragement and depression actually has a lot of impact on society. Many young people have graduated from very good universities, and a lot of the youth are trying very hard to get a good job. But if you look at the future, well, we have been facing so many different crises, starting from the 2018 GFC and now the pandemic and the climate crisis. And so our generation is a generation that has to face and tackle a variety of different crises. And so I came to the realization, although we are facing many different crises, we may be lacking the capabilities to be able to tackle them properly. And so, yes, that's basically it for my introduction, and I'll continue later on. Thank you. So anyway, you've been talking about capacity building, the need for capacity building of youth, and using the built capacity to empower themselves and to expand the ecosystem for the youth, and also then promote social innovation. I think that's basically what Fund Company is striving towards. Thank you. So we actually had a prep session, and Fund Company is really working for social innovation and social entrepreneurship. And it's like an entertainment company that manages various groups, but is working in the area of social innovation. So let me now ask you a question. So in your different groups, what do you think is necessary for the sustainable youth ecosystem? What kind of vision and roadmap is necessary so that we are able to create enabling youth ecosystem? Or if you think that the kind of ecosystem already exists, what do you think we need to do to improve it? So who would like to go first? So perhaps Eric, since you went last, you can go first for this question. Okay, let me go ahead. Yes, it's, you're really being immersed in all this. Tayin and Chan-ho have been talking about looking at the whole forest and how we're going to continue the sustainable youth ecosystem. So let me talk about the trees rather than the entire forest and how a forest needs to be composed. So the youth generation is facing a lot of difficulties. We all were really obedient. We listened to our parents well, but everything is so difficult for us. It's difficult to get a job. It's difficult to get into university. And so we did everything we were told to do, but we are facing a crisis. So rather than just panicking, what should we do? We have to be able to analyze into the issue. We have to systematically analyze it. And then we also have to think about the people around me. And so then the important thing would be to create an enabling environment. So Margaret has been talking about learning how to solve problems and to cooperate and to tackle different challenges. And so for a sustainable youth ecosystem, I think these are some of the core capabilities that are needed. And so we need the ability to communicate. We also need a critical perspective. And we also need cooperation, tackle the current issues, and also fostering of leadership. So how are we going to do that? Just doing it. I think that's the answer. So we're talking about problem solving. You can't just lecture people about problem solving. In a given environment, people have to be able to search for what kind of problems there are, and people have to be able to think what kind of resources are available to tackle the problem, and then it's hands-on. You just have to do it. So governments and companies or the business also have to be able to support these kind of endeavors so that teenagers and the youth, and when they become social entrepreneurs, they are able to receive that kind of support from an enabling an environment. So it's like a greenhouse, but the youth cannot be constrained to a greenhouse, cannot protected be inside a greenhouse. We have to be outside a greenhouse. And so rather than being overly protected, I think the youth have to really have hands-on experience. And so I'll continue later on.
맞습니다. 온실 속의 화초보다는
I really agree. So we shouldn't be in the greenhouse. We need to develop our own survival instinct in the wild, and we need this support system for people who fail. So it's not just about catching fish for the young people, like job placement and so on. It should be more about how to catch fish. In fact, various ways to catch fish. So you try all these different tools and choose what you want. So these guarantee of choices and opportunities is essential. So I think Channel Kim can continue the discussion with some focus on what's happening on the ground or on the field. So when we have an event or a training, I focus more on the theme or the text itself. And we have just talked a little bit about vision and roadmap. And when it comes to vision, I think it originates from the word visual, what we can see. So it's about seeing what is unseen right now, and the roadmap is a map that leads us to what is unseen today. So I think I have to talk about my vision, what I'm dreaming of, and my roadmap. So first of all, what am I dreaming of? So the organization is called the Youth Sustainable Development Alliance Korea. So we dream of sustainable development of young people in Korea. So this vision includes even peace and unification on the Korean Peninsula and peace in the world. So what would a society look like where the young people in Korea can develop themselves sustainably? And what should the Korean Peninsula and the world look like to ensure peace? So these are the key questions that enabled us to establish goals for sustainable development in youth. As you may well know, Korea has many local governments. There are metropolitan and provincial governments, in municipal governments, in each municipality or in each region, there are young people, including youth activists. So I hope that the youth activists can come together on the theme of sustainable development. And as you may well know, there are 17 specific areas and goals in the sustainable development goals, including poverty, developing capabilities, and also improving health, as it was mentioned by the speaker of Kenya. And there are other areas like education, gender equality, and we should be able to apply these sustainable development goals in the local communities of the youth activists.
그래서 뭔가 혁신하고
And for that, the youth activists can organize themselves into a consultative body like ours to achieve the goals in their local communities. So this is my vision. The youth activists coming together to create a system and organization in their local communities to achieve SDGs. Today, we have more activities in Seoul, in the Gyeonggi province, which is surrounding Seoul. But there are many other areas we have to build connections and networks. Cities like Jeonju, Busan, Gwangju, and also the Jeju Island. I want to create an ecosystem where the youth activists in all these different areas to work together. Now, the SDGs have a timeline until 2030, and I think so far the youth have been sidelined in establishing the goals, but by 2030, I think the policymakers in this country will recognize the fact that without the youth, it's impossible for us to achieve any goals. And also, our youth sustainable development goals are not perfect and will face a lot of challenges. And I believe it's critical for us to create a youth culture where we face the challenges in the process. And for now, there is no guideline for that, and we believe the youth sustainable development goals will serve as that. And when the global community agrees on a new sustainable development goals around 2030, I hope there will be more young people who make sure that their voices are heard by the national government and local governments across the country. And by 2030, the youth today will be the seniors or the predecessors in this youth activism. So hopefully, with that, we'll be able to make a lot of progress in peace and unification of the Korean Peninsula and peace in the world. So these are the visions and roadmaps. And I hope to see you again in that process. Thank you very much. So for you, sustainable development is a kind of flag where the youth activists can gather around. Or maybe I can put that a cause. So I believe that that cause can work as an anchor in organizing young people. Now the UN is also recognizing the need to work with major groups and other stakeholders in establishing sustainable development goals, including women, people with disabilities, farmers, indigenous people, people in the education sector, the science and technology sector, and the future generation or the youth. And I believe in the process of importing the SDGs into Korea, this involvement of stakeholders was omitted, and that's why the young people's voices were not heard in the policymaking processes. And as we are seeing more and more youth activists, I believe their voices are increasingly heard. Now I'd like to ask the YLPF about their vision.
So first of all, YLPF's vision and roadmap is premised on some of our prior experiences. And so when we talk about our past experiences, I think we'll be able to detail our visions. So basically, in a nutshell, we want a sustainable youth ecosystem requires goals that are befitting to the youth, and the youth voices have to be delivered to the lawmakers and also reflected in the different policies that they come up with. And to that end, the youth capacities have to be acknowledged. So as Mr. Kang had said, youth are main stakeholders according to the United Nations. And Chano had said, the SDGs may be still being familiar to some people. So let me just add that people usually call them SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So the United Nations, when the MDG had ended in 2015, came up with a new set of goals called the SDGs. And so nobody will be excluded, nobody will be left behind. And that is basically what we call the SDG, the set of different goals and targets. So basically, if we want to improve the social issues, and if we want to dream about social change, then we can all find the different visions that we want in the SDGs. So what have we been doing? First of all, there was a period where the Seoul Metropolitan Government was focusing on youth issues, and at that time, the youth were considered to be stakeholders, and so the UI SDGs were created as a result of that. The Youth Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs had already existed, but they did not center on the youth, and they were not really aligned with the perspective of the youth. So I think we're the first case in the world where we came up with a set of goals called the Youth Sustainable Development Goals. Anyway, when the UN was coming up with a SDG, there was a working group that came up with different views. We also had an open working group, and so we came up with specific targets as well as goals as well. And so the open working group Korea was also created, and now it's been dissolved. So the YLPF and the YSDA were created as a result of those efforts. And so we had a joint declaration session, and during the joint declaration, the SDSN also participated as the former Minister of Environment. And so it was an occasion for us to deliver our perspectives to the conventional generation. So regarding our roadmap, During the presidential election, we wanted to voice out the opinions of the youth, and so we approached the various organizations consisting of different local government officials as well as the academia. And so there is another session that's going to be held with these individuals and groups and with the youth. And the youth are active in a network. Within the YLPF, there is the SDG Youth Committee. So we have this coalition or the network within the YLPF, and we have many universities. We also have many different organizations of youth, and so many youth are participating in discussions about the SDG. So as Chanaho had mentioned, many youth want to be considered as the core of the discussion of that social development goals. So every semester we have a General Assembly, and because it's a pandemic, we have been thinking a lot about the group and organizational sustainability. We have been exchanging knowledge and experience and coming up with ways to coexist. And also, we also are working on social issues. So for example, in the previous General Assembly, we talked about the human rights abuse and the Uyghur and also the Fukushima radioactive waste disposal issues and other kind of social and current issues. So we then sent letters to the United Nations and the presidential office asking for them to do something about these issues. So anyway, we want these youth or us who are really active on the ground to be recognized as proper stakeholders.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you. So there are some concepts that I think we need to be a little bit consistent with, but nonetheless, we may be using some different wording, but basically we are seeking a happier life. And so that's what we want through sustainability. We also want to break down the barriers that hinder us from reaching those goals. And that, I think, is an important part of social innovation. And the tool in doing that is also social economy and gender equality. And because we have many women's cooperatives, we also have cooperatives and groups working with people with disabilities. We also have environment groups. We have fair trade groups. And many organizations are working on the issues of sustainability. And I think what you have mentioned, the youth being the stakeholder, is also an important point. So from Fund Company and the YLPF and the YSDA, we have been hearing what kind of activities they've been doing, what kind of vision and roadmaps they have for the sustainable youth ecosystem. There are many youth panelists amongst the participants, and there are those from Korea and those from overseas as well. We also have some people participating from the so-called establishment who are working on the issue of youth. So I think some people are uploading comments and questions onto Padlet. Perhaps you can also contribute and share your insight on how you can collaborate with the youth networks. So I think we don't have a lot of time. So nonetheless, I can ask each of the panelists to share your thoughts about what we can do to engage youth in the process of policymaking regarding sustainability, or how we can get the so-called establishment and the older generations to support our endeavors. So what are your thoughts? You can also share what you can do to induce more participation in your network. And also, as a social entrepreneurship, and you want to become a social innovator, what fund company can do to provide education and training to those kind of individuals. So if you have any tips and advice, please share them with us.
우선 앞선 이야기와 조금 더 연결되는 부분이 있을 것 같아서
So I think there's a point, linked to our previous discussion. So how can we get involved? So I believe we need more forums for public discussion and spaces for the young people to take part in and raise their voices, to share some of our experiences. On October 1st, we have organized a youth discussion on sustainable development in an attempt to collect the voices of the youth. So it's a discussion actually that took a week, and we organized the discussion. And there were themes like local agenda, local vision, and suggestions for the future. So these were three key themes on which the youths of diverse backgrounds had a discussion. And there are 4 points in the summary. First, there was a criticism, strong criticism of using ESG for greenwashing. Second, the frustration that the most activities are taking place in Seoul. So the youth in other areas had difficulties in raising their voices. Third, the labor of the youth is still undervalued. That's why it's difficult for the youth to be economically independent. And fourth, the pandemic is making it difficult to come together. So with these voices collected, we will start an advocacy campaign so that the youth can be included as a stakeholder explicitly in the Framework Act on Sustainable Development now being discussed in the National Assembly. I ask for your support and interest. Thank you very much. Next, who want to go first? Fun company, do you want to go first? All right. First of all, I am actually, searching for the answer. I am trying to have an identity as a social entrepreneur, and I do have some, businesses in operation. In listening to the discussion of other panelists, I think of this. So one of our main businesses have 2 keywords: the youth and local. And one of the solutions we found so far is about the decreasing youth population in local communities. In other words, the youth population concentrated in Seoul. Then, what if we can create a team entrepreneurship model in local communities? So that's a hypothesis we have developed and we are working on for the last couple of months. So I'd like to, leave my email address in the chat room so that anyone who's interested can contact me and join us. And there was a question in the Padlet about the sense of hopelessness often felt by young people. And what's the solution to this? Maybe team entrepreneurship? Right. So this is a good question, and we believe that team entrepreneurship is a solution, but it is at the same time it has a high entry barrier for the average young person to take part in. So we also thought about something other than entrepreneurship that's easier for young people to start. And one answer to that would be tourism or traveling. And there can be smaller projects in with some experiences in deeper thoughts. The young people could then move on to entrepreneurship. So these are our efforts to encourage the youth to start small and get bigger. And in the process, hopefully, they will be able to know more about themselves and their own strength and develop their expertise. Let me now pass the mic to the moderator. Thank you very much for your great questions and great answers. So I think those at the YLPF must have had similar experiences when the youth ask for participation, and often the responses from the government institutions are, "What's your expertise, and how are we going to prove that?" So this serves as a huge entry barrier to the young people, and it's not just for the young people. It's also for other vulnerable groups, people with disabilities, women, older people who belong to the major groups and other stakeholders designated by the UN. So I think we need to find ways to overcome this entry barrier. Channel Kim, do you have some suggestions?
I think you just gave me the most difficult question. So how are you going to bring about collaboration between the different organizations and groups? The individual's perspective and organizational perspective and an alliance perspective are the three different categories. I can answer in 2 minutes. We don't have a lot of time. Okay. So I'm 32 right now. And I've been working as a lecturer for about 9 years about child rearing. And so about yoga. So I have been teaching yoga, and I think it's been teaching me a lot, because you have to be healthy if you want to do something. I have not been able to eat something today, and so I feel rather weak, which basically means that health is very important for us. If you want to do something, you really have to take care of yourself. And sometimes if I have to travel long distances, I sometimes skip my meals. So if you think about cooperating with people, you have to be able to communicate properly, and we need to enhance sustainability of each other. So alliances on the local level is sort of like a chicken and egg question. First of all, you have to get the activists together, or you need something to gather people together. So it's sort of like a chicken and egg question. But I just think you do what needs to be done, what can be done. If there are many activists in a certain local community, you just gather them together. Or if not, then you just pick a theme and you gather the people around the theme. So, for example, our group can also propose something to a local community that we want to work on a certain theme. And so, can you gather people to work with us? So anyway, in short, I think on the personal level, we need to take care of ourselves as individuals. And I think experience is very important. Experience is important for knowledge as well. I'm in a place called Ujeongbu, which is north of Seoul. And on the roads, there are some signs and some facilities for people with disabilities that are broken down, but nobody's fixing it. Before, I didn't pay attention to these kind of blocks, but now I have the experience and I have the knowledge, and these kind of stumbling blocks come into my view. And I think next year, I think we will continue with our activities. And I think on the local community level as well, there'll be a lot more engagement and contribution. So whilst we are having this kind of heated discussion, it's time for us to now close the session. Eric and Ta-in and Chan-ho have also shared similar kind of perspective and views. In an everyday life, we experience the discrimination and inequality and injustices that we feel that we need to change. And we have to be able to identify them. And rather than just thinking, oh, they're just problems and then walking away, we have to think about some of the solutions to those issues. We have to analyze it, and we can't stop at just analyzing the issue. We have to do something about it. We may fail, but nonetheless, we have to have the courage to really face the problem head on. And I think we are able to do that because we are young. So we had a very invaluable insight from the three panelists and from Life In, and also from the two international participants. And the GSEF, SDSN, and Life In had co-hosted this session regarding youth. So I think the final word is, let's just stop thinking, let's now act. But if we are to think a little bit more, then let's look around us a lot more. So I think that can basically sum up what we have been discussing today. So hopefully, we'll be able to look at the world around us. We'll be able to voice out our opinion. And once we voice ourselves out, we will get the support from around us. And with those words, I'd like to close the session and thank you everyone from Korea and from all around the world for participating in this 2-hour session. Thank you very much.